Welcome back to another episode of the Epic Investor Podcast. My name is Jason Morris. Today I'm here with Rich Jarvis. Today we want to talk about the excitement of a new deal and really dive deep into understanding if the excitement is getting in the way of performing proper due diligence, taking care of underwriting, and even stress testing the project, seeing if it aligns with your morals and the ethics that you live by, and really identifying if this is a model that you're willing to dive into and own. With that, let's get started. I genuinely can say that I am excited about most every deal I get introduced to or find. Have you? Can you argue that for
No,
yourself?
I think that would be an understatement.
Okay, okay, I like that. I think my approach has always been finding, like, okay, I'm excited because I have a new project. I'm excited because this is fun and exciting. I like the person that I'm talking to. And I start to, like, dive in and go, how can we make this our own, and how can we put our own spin on it? However, at what point through that process do you ever challenge yourself and go, all right, I need to check my excitement and energy at the door and dive in? So the idea behind this is that the excitement's not the strategy. The idea is that you have a strategy already put together so that you can challenge your excitement.
Yeah, that's almost why you need a process. You need a strategy because if you don't, you will get caught up in that moment. Where you talk about the end becomes the means. Well, this is a case where the means have become the end, where it's the excitement that everyone revolves around instead of the actual nuts and bolts of will this work?
How do you manage that though? Because as a leader, don't you want everybody to be excited about it? Like, don't you want that energy behind a new project? I mean, you got to have it.
So the question is, how do you maintain that energy at the same time of doing what's right? And what I mean by that is doing all of the things that are right to make sure that it is a good deal.
There's 5 boys in my family, and so I've got four brothers. I'm an identical twin, and our brains just don't stop. They don't ever shut off. And we were trying to come up, my brother Dave and I, my twin brother and I, we were just recently married, so we're scrounging for money. We're trying to find ways to, just to be able to take her out to Taco Bell. And we had this brainiac idea, let's go start a Christmas tree collection business. And we had a friend that worked for the news, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, do you think you could do a piece on my brother and I? We're gonna start this Christmas tree collection business, and we're gonna give 10% to charity, and people don't understand the dangers of that dry Christmas tree." She put us on the news right after the fire department shows people in real time what happens when a tree catches fire, right? So the fire department's in their studio, makeshift studio, they light a dry fire tree on fire, and it's up in flames in like 8 seconds. And the very next segment is, call comegetmytree.com. They'll come collect your tree for 25 bucks, and they're giving 10% to the children's hospital. And like, we had connections with the Coyotes, the Phoenix Coyotes organization. Like, we were so excited about the deal, Rich. It was the most painful and the dumbest business idea we had ever had. And it's because we were so excited about it that we just ran through walls, literally. And I remember I took a week off of work. I was working for a physical therapist because I was in a kinesiology program and thought I wanted to be a PT. And I took a week off of work to do this, and we collected 3,000 Christmas trees, 2,000 Christmas trees, something like that. And just a little bit more detail that I think is important here, showing that because we were so excited about it, we did not vet it, we did not prove the concept, we did not check data. Well, my brother's job was to go find a place to dump these trees, and somebody in the city said, "You can dump them on this lot over here, and we'll recycle them." Well, we showed up with our first haul of trees. It was like 200 trees, and the guy was like, "You can drop off one." And I'm like, "I got 200 more, and I got like 6 more days of work ahead of me. So where are we gonna put these trees?" We put them in our backyard. We drove through our side yard. We stacked all these trees up. I mean, it smelled awesome. My windows were open, and it smelled beautiful until the fire department shows up and says, "You have a fire hazard in your backyard. Those need to get out." And I'm like, "I just spent 7 days getting them." Anyway, we had to hire somebody to come in and mulch them up, and it was a total train wreck. It was a total disaster. It was sure exciting though when we talked about how much fun this was gonna be until I'm 2 in the morning hauling trees around, not making a dime, but learning valuable lessons. So, to your point, right? What's your model? What's your principle? What are your checkpoints along the way? And your final question that you had there was, well, how do you maintain energy while checking these points, right? I think that over the last several years, I've learned that you have to have energy, excitement. You've got to get buy-in from everybody to try to meet your level of energy and excitement. But my opinion is the way you do that is you identify what you're talking about. Okay, let's talk blue sky for a minute. Let's talk dreamer. Like, let's talk where we're going to be in 10 years. Like, we're going to world domination, top dog in the industry. That's where we're headed, folks. All right, now let's talk execution. This is what it's going to look like. And while you're maintaining that energy, now you're building framework around who is going to be responsible for what and when. And then, all right, now we're going to talk about financial structure. And then you dive into this is how we're going to pay for it. And these are the metrics we need to hold. And these are the KPIs that we're going to meet every day, every week to make sure we're headed in the right way so that we can be world domination and
You're
top
essentially
dog, right?
describing what underwriting is, underwriting the project.
Yeah, you are. And you're doing that. Here's a scenario, okay? Have you ever had anybody that's come up to you with a business idea or a deal that they think you'd find interesting?
Maybe ask the inverse. Have you ever had someone who didn't come up to you with right? Yes, many.
And what do you do? Because I respect that there are several opportunities for due diligence and underwriting as you're going through, a deal, right? And this one is more of an elevator pitch, right? Hey, Rich, I got this deal. I want you to tell me what you think because they want your opinion and your feedback. So do you have like you probably don't even think about it anymore. You probably just do it. But do you have like a framework in your head of questions you want to ask and to see if it's something you really should be excited about?
I do it. It's called the Epic Succeed model, and we'll definitely talk about that too. But what this reminds me of, Jason, is the concept of fear and greed, in particular, the greed side. And I think in times past, the if you're going to diagnose what's really happening, the focus is more on the greed side, if I can be that blunt, than really how it's all gonna work, right? And greed is not just financial. You take some really good things like the impact you're making. Like someone wants to truly make an impact. That's a good thing. And they have this idea that is going to make this massive impact, right? And and then that focus on the impact becomes that piece, and there's no real world way to make it work so that there could become an impact. I got sucked into that greed too. There was a large project that we were doing as a more of a resort community, and we were really excited about it. And then when things start changing, the excitement changes from you know what could possibly go wrong to what in the world is going right, you know. And the excitement changes very quickly, and then that's when you know it was a fear or greed issue rather than a fundamental, "This is a good project," and being excited about that rather than just focusing on what's in it for me or what am I gonna get out of this and not really looking at the fundamentals.
I'm hearing you talk about, you've got these checkpoints in your head, but what you're trying to do is look beyond, what the normal checkpoints would be. For example, hey, Rich, I think this is a good deal. Well, how much money does it make, right? First question. Does it make money? How long have they been in business, right? Generic checkpoints
What does
of,
it do?
right?
Right.
That, yeah, what industry is it in? And, is it viable? And,
There
what
are
kinds
lots
of
of
threats are
industries that
there?
make lots of money that I wouldn't wanna be in.
True. Right? If you don't have a passion for it or it doesn't align with your
Or not
morals.
ethical. For me, even above that, it's not about does it make money? There's a fundamental step even above that one. And and Jason, that's just who you are. You're just assuming all that it's going to be that way anyway. But
Right.
there are some deals that you're like, yeah, that can make a lot of money, but that's just not ethical or not moral or whatever it might be. So
Sure, whatever your position and stance is. This kind of leads me to my second point, and you did a really good job of guiding us to this point, and that is to look beyond, right? And my point here is to look beyond the P&L. You can do a stress test, you can do a health check on a company based on financial data, based on, hey, they made this much money for the last 8 years, average revenue by month, average income by month, bank statements, you can check cash flow analysis, all that. But really, all you're doing is feeding your excitement. Like, yeah, I told you this was a sweet deal. I told you this thing's print money. Like, I told you this is going to be big, right? But you tend to allow the excitement to interfere with the next level, which is what you were just talking about, and that's looking beyond, right? So let's dive in and talk about the people of an organization, right? How are they doing, and what parts of the business are they involved in? One of my favorite things to do during due diligence is to read employee files. And you hope that you find employee files that are filled with annual reviews where the business owner has provided a story or a history of, here's what they've done for the last year, here's the impact they've had on the company. Or maybe it's full of write-ups and, yeah, I don't know, police records or something like that. I mean, and the background checks that they've kept on file, but they never read. And I'm willing to share an example of this. I'm not going to reveal names or anything like that, just out of respect. But we had looked at a deal, and I remember being very excited. And I remember calling this, and I used the word intentionally, this is going to be an exciting project, not a business, not a venture, but it's going to be an exciting project, because I saw this as an opportunity to have so many things to fix and so many things to work on, right? Like, you've already raised your eyebrows like, well, what are we talking about? But it was presented to me in such a way where I was coming in to fix something, right? It was already under acquisition, it was already under management. Things weren't going right. I came in and got the high level, surface level of the problems, and was like, okay, well, if this is the problem and if these are the issues, great. I got like 10 things I can work on. This is going to keep me busy for 2 years. I'm all in, guys. Let's go. Right. Well, I didn't read employee files, and I didn't read or dive deep on vendor relationships. I didn't dive deep on the cash flow analysis and what it took to keep everything running. And I remember, I think 3 months in, saying the words, I made a mistake. But I mean, by that point, Rich, I am all in. My family's moved. I'm knee deep. I'm neck deep in it. I don't like to quit, and I don't like to pull out of things. And so I'm like, here we go, right? And it was the beginning of a very difficult project, because I was so excited about the project and the opportunity to go in and fix things that I didn't perform basic due diligence, right? And so I didn't look beyond the P&L. I didn't look into the weeds of the company. And so my new mantra is, why shouldn't we buy it? And you can ask Richie, our analyst at Impact Equity Partners. I ask him that every day. Why are we buying this? Why are we looking at it? Is this worth our time? Should we buy it? And we're doing that, Rich, on deals that we've looked at for months. And we want to play the devil advocate role of, well, maybe this is a reason not to buy it. Not because we don't want to buy it, but because we're challenging the excitement. We're challenging the the foresight of, this is where we're going to be in 3 years, right? We're going to be taking over the world. We're going to be known by everybody. They're going to put us in the NFL. Come back to earth, right? And challenge it with tough questions that make you uncomfortable. So I found that I'd rather do that than be uncomfortable 3 months in, wishing I had done something
Well,
before.
a lot of times the excitement comes from, that's the initial piece, right? And then you go out and you share your excitement and essentially make a social commitment that this is what you're doing. You go down the road, you find out it's not all cracked out what it's going to be, what was intended. And then you're faced with, oh, so do I go back and ruin my social capital and then just pretend this is not, and then try to figure this out? Or do I swallow that pride and just say, look, I was wrong, and move on? And I think that is very difficult to do. I think it's ego that comes into play is really what that what that is.
Yeah, 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 the pride's a real factor here, and it's funny, I actually have a greater appreciation for people that are real and honest and upfront, even when they've made that social commitment, and I can walk up to a guy and say, "How's it going?" And he's like, "Man, I'm getting my butt handed to me." Like, I didn't know what I was walking into. I love that approach, and it inspires me to do the same. Like, I can talk to investors and say, "Yeah, we've pushed it back again. We had this issue come up," or, "Hey, we're pushing it back again because it changed." And I would rather be wildly honest and open. It allows me to receive responses of help and responses of encouragement rather than put on this facade that everything's fine and I'm Superman and I'm bulletproof. No one is, right? And when you fake it, you approach it that way.
So this story, this was an acquisition of a development we were going to be able to put about 94 homes on. We had essentially all of the investor dollars to the table that we needed to close on the deal. One of our developers went through and noticed something that was off. What he noticed is when he was walking the project, he looked down and he saw there's marker plates, and it was covered. It was never even uncovered. But supposedly there was a survey that was done to show what we had. And you can't have a survey done if you haven't looked at the markers.
Oh, no.
So he went back and he's like, he raised the red flag and said, look, something's not right. And come to find out, the sellers were in cahoots with the surveyor.
Oh, no.
Now, long story short, we own the property, we bought it, but going through it, so it's exciting when you get to the point where you're about ready to close and you're looking at all of this potential upside, potential project of what you're going to do, right? And then you're faced with the survey is off. What do we do? So we called it off. And not the entire thing. We just said, no, we can't close. We've got to get this rectified. We went and paid for our own survey, and there was a change. It wasn't correct. And they actually found in the search old easements back in the early 1900s that people had just not paid attention to that were encroaching. And one of them was for a railroad.
Oh, boy.
So huge problem. So so because we hadn't purchased it, we forced the sellers to rectify that problem and take care of it before we closed, and that delayed it for a little bit. But to have the fortitude, because you've already committed to investors, you've already said we're closing, we have a date, to go back and say, even though we're so excited about this deal, we're not going to do it because of this process we found there's some red flags.
You would hope that those that you have stewardship over that are trusting you would be able to see through the disappointment and say, "Thank you for doing the right thing." And, then obviously to be excited again and have that renewed energy when it actually does go. And now you're even more confident with, the data that you've got.
You're exactly right, Jason. In fact, if they could come on and share their point of view. Now, granted, it wasn't what you want to hear, that, okay, we're going to close, we have all the money, and then, yeah, we might not close. We might have to send all the money back, right? That's not fun. But I guarantee you, at the end of the day, when we got through it, there was a different level of respect that was earned that we would not have had we just kind of threw it under the rug and tried to fix it on our own.
What a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure that people listening are nodding heads going, "Yep, been there, yep." Or hopefully they're listening and they're going, "I have a new appreciation for, those people that did call it off and paused it and waited until it was right and put my money to work." So again, it talks about the stewardship that we have. It is one of the points that can be used in identifying if you're overly excited about something. You can call on your stewardship role of those you are going to be serving, whether it's an investor portfolio or whether it's people in a business that you're acquiring. I've always asked the question, is this business a vehicle? And I'm just in the business acquisition game, so that's where my mind goes. But is this a vehicle that will allow me to serve people? Can I serve the employees that work within it? Can I serve the people that, the vendor relationships? Can I serve my investors through that vehicle? Do I have a passion for the business itself, the service? One of my favorites, and I've been in a lot of different businesses, and I loved the asphalt game because we got to beautify parking lots and beautify driveways. That was fun. But one of the deepest impacts in my life was the non-emergency transportation and transporting people, because I've got an older sister who passed when I was 14, and she was handicapped. She was born dead, and they revived her, and she had severe brain damage as a result of, lack of oxygen. And I spent my years growing up pushing my sister around. She was 16 when she passed away, but I was able to serve her. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she couldn't do anything for herself. And getting back into the non-emergency transportation business, it reminded me how much I love serving. And you've got a special stewardship over these people that you're transporting from one place to the other and making it comfortable and turning on nice music or having a nice conversation. And so again, luckily that one worked out for me because I had an affinity for it. But in the onset, right? If you're getting ready to go into a position like that, you've got to check your excitement by asking, can I serve? Can I serve the community through this vehicle? And in often ways, you end up taking better care of the business and the operation to support your desire to serve people. Your decisions that you make at the highest level of expenses. What's this going to do to the P&L? And what's this going to do on payroll? And what's this going to do come bonus time when people want bonuses and I can't give them as much as we'd like to because we've spent money on X, Y, or Z, right? You challenge it. It doesn't mean you don't spend it. You just challenge it at a new level, kind of pushing off that excitement just for a minute, right? So that you can challenge what you're doing. So that stewardship piece is a top one. The last one that I really like to ensure is, will this support or is it compatible with your model? And in our world, we talk a lot about EOS, and we utilize EOS as the framework behind structure, right? Does this company already have its own framework? Does it already have a model that is running and operating, or is it going to be one that we could bring into the EOS model and run EOS through it? Because when you're buying a business or when you're looking at an opportunity to invest in, and it can't support a framework, or the employees are not going to be willing to be accountable, not being babysat, but being accountable for what they're doing, it's another way to check your energy at the door and look deep at, I'm not going to be so excited if I've got 10 people that won't tell me what's going on, or if I've got 10 people that just don't want me to know what they're doing and who they're talking to.
That's a whole other issue, just bringing up accountability. Have you ever read the book, The Oz Principle?
I haven't. No.
Probably one of the better books I've ever read on accountability. I just want to clear the air on when we're talking about this, because when people, I think in our culture today, if someone says, yeah, we're going to hold someone accountable, that's not a positive connotation for whatever reason, right? Or if you hear the word, who's accountable for this in an organization, it's like they're trying to point fingers and place blame, is really
And
that.
people don't want that.
Right. And so it's like this reaction towards accountability that's a negative. And I think that is fundamentally wrong on every level. What I love about the Oz principle, their definition of accountability, true accountability embraces current and future efforts to rise above one's circumstances and move in the direction of your goals, regardless of those circumstances. It rejects historical explanations of why something did or didn't happen, and embraces current and future efforts to move forward and rise above. That's what accountability is. The difference between those, manager A and manager B, or investor A, investor B, or even sponsor A, sponsor B. Sponsor A comes in and there's a problem, and so their accountability, that sounds something like, oh, well, this happened, and this happened. There's nothing else we can do. I mean, and so they're recounting a historical explanation of why something has failed. And then the other one says, yes, this happened, it has failed, and this is what we're doing about it. and we're gonna and you rise up from the ashes and regardless of your circumstances to move in the direction of what's most important and what really matters. That's accountability.
I love that, and you're right. I think we could. I mean, do you want to go change the world? Like, do we need to reshape what accountability looks like in the world? Because I've got kids. They don't like that word at all, right? Who's accountable for not taking out the trash? I mean, and everybody kind of just shrinks down and, oh, I got to
Yeah,
go
I think it's a
somewhere.
travesty. I think it should be, it's like the Captain America pose. I am,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna get it done. Yeah.
No, I love when I can say I'll be accountable for that, right? I'll take it on. I'll put my name behind that. I'll make sure it happens. And if it doesn't happen, like, hey, that's on my shoulders. That's square on I will handle it, right? And there's growth that comes from that. And it even the interactions you and I've had over the last year, I mean, I haven't been able to get everything right, and I've had to say, "Hey, I'm gonna fix this," but there hasn't been any negativity to it, and there shouldn't be, right? It's not meant to. It's how do we EOS does such a good job, right, of getting rid of the weeds, and they look at what's the problem, let's discuss it, how do we solve it, and you're accountable for it, go. And never at any point is it you, right? None of that crap. I love it.
In connection with that culture of non-accountability is the culture of a fear to fail. When you have such a fear that failure is wrong and it cannot happen, then you do things to make it so that you either can't fail or or do everything to pretend you haven't. And I think those 2 go hand in hand. True accountability embraces current and future efforts. It recognizes failure. It's okay to fail. It's just what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, I think of the game of baseball. That is a game of failure, right? What, athletes are making hundreds of millions and they hit the ball 3 out of 10 times. I mean, that's not even an F grade, right? That's like a, what are we doing
I
here?
I don't know if I could, meet 3 out of my 10 rocks or, goals and call that I don't know if I'd have a job.
Not apples to apples, but, I would venture to say you're gonna fail more than you're gonna succeed. I just hope that you're failing at the little things on your way to the big successes instead of failing on the big ones because to your point, right? If you're covering it up or if you're intentionally not identifying the real issues so that it doesn't look like you failed, you're missing the failure of those small little things that are inconsequential that can be fixed really quickly and easily. And frankly, make your path to success a little bit easier if you can solve this problem, right? But you do that every step of the way, and then there's a huge issue at the end of it because of those little failures that weren't ever addressed.
When things are hard, take care of it now. Run uphill and it will be a completely different story. You'll end in a different place than when you're faced with challenges, you shy away and go where it's easy, go downhill because when at the end of the day, the end result is completely different.
I certainly believe that you should have lots of energy and excitement around opportunities. It is a key factor of a successful deal. You've got to have a lot of energy and excitement to keep going, to keep persevering. But through this discussion, my hope is that as you've identified some areas in your current opportunities of acquisition or investments or projects that you're working on, that you might have gleaned something by way of where you could check some of that excitement and energy at the door and identify your stewardship in that project, identify reading between the P&L or beyond it, and diving deep into the weeds of the operation and organization. And where you've identified where the model or an EOS model, for example, could fit into that play. And obviously really just taking care of understanding that your excitement and energy does not mean that it aligns with the box that you've created for buying a project or investing in a project. So I would love to hear, Rich and I both would love to hear your experiences. We'd love to hear some of the struggles or the successes that you've had along the way and all along this path. We know there's a lot of you out there that are in the same fight we are, and it's invigorating, it's inspiring, it recharges my batteries when I get to talk to people that are doing the same thing and having the same struggles where we can collaborate together. So with that, we hope that this has been an insightful podcast for you. We encourage you to like, subscribe, share, reach out. We're here. We're here to talk. We're here to commiserate. We're here to be excited with you. And until next time, be epic.